Osun's election may be over, but the political battle is far from finished. APC is now rejecting the victory declared for Ademola Adeleke, and the party is making a striking claim about who actually secured the highest valid votes. This isn't a vague complaint, it's coming directly from the Director-General of APC's own governorship campaign on national television, 2 days after INEC's declaration. So what exactly is APC alleging? What do the official numbers actually show? And could this become a full legal battle, one Osun has in fact been through before? Let's get into it. If you want Nigerian political stories explained with the facts, the context, and the receipts, subscribe to ThePolicyPulseHQ. We don't just follow the headline, we follow what happens next. In the early hours of Sunday, August 16th, INEC's State Returning Officer, Professor Joshua Olalekon Ogunwole, Vice-Chancellor of the Federal University Oye Ekiti, declared Ademola Adeleke of the Accord Party the winner of Saturday's governorship election. The official figures: Adeleke, 511,067 votes, Bola Oyebamiji of APC, 444,815 votes, a margin of 66,252. Najim Salam of the ADC finished a distant third with 17,180 votes. Total votes cast were 1,005,800. Of those, 985,079 were declared valid and 20,721 were rejected. Adeleke's tally represented roughly 50.8% of the vote, Oyebamiji's roughly 44.2%. Adeleke carried 19 of Osun's 30 local government areas. Oyebamiji carried the remaining 11. That's the official, declared, certified result. Everything in the rest of this video is about what APC is now doing in response to it. The clearest statement of APC's position came from Oluwole Oke, Director-General of the APC State Governorship Campaign, speaking on Arise News on Monday, August 17. His exact words: "We do not agree with the declaration of INEC. That's our position for now. We believe he did not score the highest valid votes." Here's what that specific claim actually means, and it's worth being precise about it. APC is not, in what Oke said, disputing that the vote was conducted or claiming polling units were physically compromised. The claim is narrower and more specific than that. It's a dispute over whether the certified valid vote tally itself, after rejected and void votes are properly accounted for, actually gives Adeleke the majority INEC declared. To support this, Oke said APC has directed its polling and collation agents to submit copies of forms EC8A, EC8B, and EC8C to the party's secretariat for review. These are the standard result forms used at Nigerian elections. EC8A records results at the polling unit level, EC8B at the ward level, and EC8C at the local government level. APC's stated process is to cross-check its own agents' copies of these forms against what INEC ultimately certified and announced. As of this recording, APC has not publicly presented specific alternative vote totals, has not identified specific polling units or wards where it says the certified numbers are wrong, and has not filed a formal petition at the Governorship Election Tribunal. Oke was explicit that the party is still auditing before forming a final position. Until we do that and form our opinion, we won't be able to go further to say anything on this. Separately, APC's Director of Media and Information, Kola Olabisi, issued a statement on Sunday, a day before Oke's interview, describing the party's broader legal posture. Olabisi said, an election cannot be said to have been concluded without exploring all constitutionally allowed legal opportunities to correct anomalies observed in the process, as enshrined in the Electoral Act 2026 as amended, and explicitly referenced the full pathway from tribunal to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. Adeleke's own public comments since the declaration have focused less on directly rebutting APC's specific vote count claim and more on broader post-election messaging. Speaking to Channels Television, he thanked President Tinubu directly for what he described as a peaceful election process, saying, "I want to seize this opportunity to thank Mr. President. Mr. President has called me and he has congratulated me. Thank you, Mr. President, for making sure democracy lives on because you fought for it." In that same interview, Adeleke was asked directly whether his public support for Tinubu's 2027 ambition reflected some kind of political agreement. He denied it explicitly. "No, I did not reach an agreement with Mr. President. My support is just based on Mr. President being a Yoruba man and his projects." We do not, in the reporting reviewed for this script, have a direct, specific Accord Party rebuttal to Oke's exact claim about valid vote totals. No Accord spokesperson has, as of this writing, addressed the forms EC8A, EC8B, EC8C review APC says it's conducting. That's a genuine gap in the public record right now, not a deliberate omission on our part, and it's worth watching for a direct response as APC's audit continues. Let's put the certified numbers next to each other plainly. Adeleke, 511,067 votes. Oyebamiji, 444,815 votes. That's a gap of 66,252 votes, roughly 6.6% of total valid votes cast, going entirely to Adeleke's side of the ledger. Total valid votes, 985,079. Rejected votes, 20,721. That's about 2.1% of total votes cast, which is within a broadly normal range for Nigerian elections, though we don't have a direct historical comparison figure verified for this script. For APC's claim to actually change the outcome, it isn't enough to point to isolated irregularities somewhere in the state. The party would need to demonstrate that once properly recalculated, enough votes shift away from Adeleke's declared total, or that a sufficient number of votes currently counted as valid for Adeleke should instead be excluded entirely. Based only on what's publicly available at time of writing, we cannot confirm or refute APC's specific claim. That's precisely what their own document review is meant to establish, and they haven't yet published findings. What we can say is that the margin involved, over 66,000 votes, is not a razor-thin single-digit gap of the kind that sometimes gets overturned by correcting a handful of disputed polling units. A challenge of this scale would need to identify and substantiate irregularities across a genuinely significant number of results to close that gap, which is exactly the kind of evidentiary burden Nigerian election tribunals require. Now, I want to hear from you. Looking at the official numbers and APC's argument, do you think the party has a strong case, or is this simply the beginning of a political fight? Tell me what you think in the comments. APC spokesperson Kola Olabisi's Sunday statement explicitly laid out the legal pathway available under Nigerian electoral law. A petition can be filed at the Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, with further appeal possible to the Court of Appeal and ultimately the Supreme Court. As of this recording, no tribunal petition has actually been filed. APC's own stated position through Oke is that the party is still completing its internal document review before deciding whether to proceed. Here's something genuinely worth knowing, and it makes this threat more credible than boilerplate post-election rhetoric. Osun has been through exactly this legal pathway before, with the same two parties in reversed roles. After Adeleke first won the governorship in 2022, then on the PDP platform, defeating then-incumbent Oyetola of the APC, Oyetola challenged the result at the Election Petition Tribunal, alleging overvoting. The tribunal initially ruled in Oyetola's favor in January 2023, upturning Adeleke's victory. Adeleke appealed, and in March 2023, the Court of Appeal reversed the tribunal, reinstating Adeleke, finding that Oyetola and APC had failed to substantiate the overvoting allegation with evidence like voter registers and BVAS data, or witness testimony, not simply a public statement of disagreement. And this is where the story gets interesting. The election result may have been declared, but if APC follows through with its challenge, the next chapter could move from the polling unit to the courtroom. So stay with us, because we will be following every major development. For Adeleke, an unresolved APC challenge, even one that ultimately fails, as Oyetola's did in 2022, means the shadow of legal uncertainty could hang over the early part of his second term, even as he's already begun governing and receiving congratulations, including from President Tinubu himself. For APC, this challenge is genuinely a test of whether the party has actual evidentiary grounds or whether this is primarily a period of political positioning before an eventual acceptance, a pattern with precedent, given how the 2022 challenge played out, though this specific claim about valid votes hasn't been publicly tested yet. Oke used his Arise News interview to raise a separate point worth noting honestly. He questioned the Adeleke administration's record on education, healthcare, and support for farmers, saying this would inform the party's broader assessment. That's a policy critique, distinct from the vote count claim itself, and it's worth keeping those two threads, the numerical challenge and the governance critique, separate in your own thinking, since APC is running both simultaneously. Nationally, this loss, APC's second consecutive failure to win Osun's governorship under a Tinubu presidency, lands at a moment several political figures had already tied to 2027 positioning. Whether APC's response here is genuine legal grievance, political theater, or some combination of both is something only the party's actual next moves, filing or not filing a petition, publishing or not publishing specific evidence, will answer. Watch for whether APC completes its internal audit of the forms EC8A, EC8B, and EC8C, and if so, whether it publishes specific findings rather than a general statement of disagreement. Watch for whether APC actually files a petition at the Governorship Election Petition Tribunal. Nigerian electoral law sets specific tight deadlines for filing such petitions after a declaration, so this decision will need to come soon if it's coming at all. Watch for any direct Accord Party or Adeleke camp response, specifically addressing Oke's valid votes claim, which has not yet been directly rebutted in available reporting. And importantly, under Nigerian law, INEC's declared result remains legally in effect, and Adeleke remains the sitting governor unless and until a tribunal or court actually overturns it. A rejection statement, however strongly worded, does not itself change the certified outcome. Osun has a declared winner, but APC is refusing to simply accept the result, and its latest argument has opened a new political battle over what the numbers actually mean. Here's what we know for certain. INEC declared Adeleke the winner with 511,067 votes to Oyebamiji's 444,815, a margin of 66,252. APC's Director-General says the party disagrees and is auditing the results. No tribunal petition has been filed yet, and Osun has been down this exact road before in 2022, when a similar challenge ultimately failed at every level, from tribunal to Supreme Court. If you want us to follow this story from the political claims to the actual evidence, subscribe to ThePolicyPulseHQ and turn on notifications. And if you found this breakdown useful, like this video and share it with someone following the Osun political story. The headline may say Adeleke won, but the next question is whether APC can successfully challenge that victory. Here on the Policy Pulse HQ, we follow the story, check the claims, and wait for the receipts.